They thought it would be the perfect office prank. Set him up with a deaf woman, just to laugh behind his back. But the moment he raised his hands and started signing fluently, the laughter stopped, because they had no idea who he really was. It started as a cruel joke. Mark was the quiet guy at the office, kept to himself, never joined the gossip. So his coworkers decided to have some fun. They set him up on a blind date with a deaf woman, expecting him to panic, to feel awkward, to embarrass himself. They even planned to watch from a distance. But when the woman sat down, something unexpected happened. Mark smiled gently and lifted his hands. He began signing, fluently, confidently, beautifully. Her eyes widened in shock. Then she smiled, bigger than anyone had seen all night. The coworkers? Frozen. Because what they didn't know was this. Mark grew up with a deaf sister. Sign language wasn't a joke to him. It was love. It was family. The conversation flowed. Laughter filled the table. And for the first time, Mark wasn't the quiet guy. He was the strongest person in the room. But what happened next? When the coworkers realized who the woman actually was, that changed everything. Because the deaf woman they tried to use for a prank turned out to be someone far more powerful than they ever imagined. And the next morning at the office, no one was laughing anymore. The next morning, the office felt different. Whispers, stares, silence. Mark walked in like he always did, calm, composed. But this time he wasn't alone. Right behind him was her. The same woman they had used for their harmless joke. Except she wasn't just some random date. She was the daughter of the company's largest investor. And not only that, she was a highly respected accessibility consultant who worked with major corporations to improve inclusive policies, including theirs. The manager stepped out of his office, face pale, because overnight, an email had been sent to the board. Not about revenge, not about anger, but about workplace culture, about respect, about dignity. And guess who had been personally recommended to lead the company's new inclusion program? Mark, the quiet guy, the one they underestimated. By the end of the week, the pranksters weren't laughing anymore. They were sitting in mandatory training sessions, led by the very man they tried to humiliate. And as for Mark, he didn't seek revenge. He gained something better, respect, confidence, and maybe something more. Because when he looked at her across the conference room, she smiled. And this time, everyone understood exactly what that smile meant. But what happened when one of the coworkers tried to apologize publicly? The tension in the office was unbearable. Mandatory inclusion training had begun. Mark stood at the front of the room, confident, calm. And in the back row sat Jason, the one who started the prank. Halfway through the session, Jason slowly stood up. Everyone held their breath. "I owe you an apology," he said, voice shaking. "I thought it was just a joke. I didn't think about how it would feel." Silence filled the room. Then something unexpected happened. The woman, still seated beside the senior management team, raised her hand gently. Mark looked at her. She began signing. He translated. She says, "Thank you for apologizing. But this isn't just about me or Mark." Jason frowned slightly. Mark continued translating her signs. "She says this is about every person who has ever been underestimated, treated like a punchline, or made to feel small." The room felt heavy. Jason lowered his head. "I didn't realize." Mark paused. Then he signed back to her, and this time she laughed softly. He turned to the room. She says, "Growth begins the moment you realize you were wrong."
No anger, no humiliation.
Just truth. But then, the CEO walked in unexpectedly. And what he announced next left the entire office in shock. Because this wasn't just about training anymore. It was about a promotion, and only one name was being considered. The room went completely silent when the CEO stepped forward. No one had expected him. He looked around slowly, then at Mark. "I've been reviewing something for weeks," he said. "Not just numbers, not just performance." He paused. "I've been reviewing character." You could hear a pin drop. The CEO continued, "Leadership isn't about who talks the loudest. It's about who stands firm when tested." Everyone knew what he meant. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The CEO turned toward the woman and nodded respectfully. Then back to the team. "Starting next month, we're launching a new diversity and inclusion division." Murmurs spread across the room. "And it will be led by someone who already embodies what this company should stand for." He looked directly at Mark. "Congratulations. You're being promoted to director." Gasps. The quiet guy. The one they mocked. The one they tried to embarrass. Mark stood frozen. But then something even more surprising happened. He didn't smile widely. He didn't celebrate loudly. Instead, he looked at the woman beside him and began signing. She watched him carefully. Then she turned to the CEO and spoke softly. "I'll accept the consulting contract," she said. "But only if he accepts the promotion." The CEO raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" She smiled. "Because real change needs real leaders." The room wasn't laughing anymore. They were learning. But later that evening, when Mark and she walked out of the building together, she asked him one quiet question in sign language. A question that had nothing to do with work. And his answer changed both of their lives forever. The building lights were dim. The parking lot almost empty. Mark and she walked side by side. No audience, no whispers, no judgment. Just silence. She stopped near her car. Then she turned to him and began signing slowly. Her hands moved gently this time. Not professional. Not formal. Personal. He watched carefully. She signed. "Did you know sign language before your sister? Or because of her?" Mark smiled softly. He signed back. "Because of her. When we were kids, she was bullied. I learned so she would never feel alone again." Her eyes softened. She stepped closer. Then she signed something that made his heart race. "You didn't just defend me in that room. You understood me." He hesitated for just a second. Then he signed. "I've been understanding you since the first minute you sat down." She laughed silently, covering her mouth. But then her expression grew serious. "One last question." She signed. "If there had been no promotion, no title, no audience, would you still have talked to me the same way?" Mark didn't hesitate this time. He signed immediately. "I didn't speak to impress anyone. I spoke because you deserved to be seen." Her eyes glistened, and in that quiet parking lot, she reached for his hand.
No prank.
No audience.
No lesson.
Just two people who met in the middle of silence and found something louder than words. But here's the real twist. Months later, when their story spread across the company as an example of change, they were invited to speak at a national conference about inclusion. And standing on that stage together, Mark realized something powerful. The joke that was meant to break him built the life he never imagined. If you believe respect always wins, hit like and subscribe right now. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.